Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I believe that phone number is Allie. That is correct. Um, I just did allow to talk for Allie because there is not a way to make you an actual panelist.
Yeah, my computer has died and I don't have a work computer and Eric is not home, so I cannot log into our desktop because I can't remember the password. So working with what we got.
There. Sounds frustrating.
It is what it is. It's Eric has been stuck in traffic for 3 hours because of all the MBS nonsense downtown. So I'm trying not to bother him too much.
3 hours?
Yeah, he works on Fort Belvoir, so he has quite the commute. But yes, 3 hours. He left his office at like 4 o'clock.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, I
Huh.
know. He's gonna be in a bad mood when he gets home. It's okay.
I would be too. I don't like driving
Yeah.
on the best of days.
Yeah, it was not a great bike commute either. The traffic patterns are all bad. I recommend not leaving your house tonight. And if you do, just don't go downtown.
What if I bike though? Is it fine then?
I mean, I just biked home and it was really annoying.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Because all the drivers are in a pretty bad mood, so they're driving like extra homicidally when they are able to.
Hmm. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. And like I said, the traffic patterns are messed up because they have like motorcades and like a bunch of the center running bike lanes are all shut down and there's like gating and everything around. I don't know. It's a mess.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening. We'll just
Okay.
give folks a couple more minutes to join.
Oh,
Nice. Hello.
Allie, how was your trip?
Sorry, I muted myself real quick. It was amazing. Oh God. We were in Japan for a week and then Thailand for a week. It was unbelievable. Highly recommend if you've never been to either.
That's so
Sad to be
cool.
back, but what can you do?
Right. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really trip of a lifetime, definitely.
Awesome.
Gonna wait for it to hit the 7:03 mark before we get started. All right. It is now 7:03 p.m. I'm Commissioner Josh Jacobson, Chair of the Transportation and Public Spaces Committee. And tonight we will be talking about the Crosstown Bus Priority Project. But before we get started, I wanted to make a couple of administrative notes. If you are dialing in today and you want to mute and unmute, you can press *6 on your phone. And if you want to raise or lower your hand, you can press *9. I will now call out the folks that are in attendance. I see we have a few commissioners and a few committee members. I'll start with Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Jacobson, that's me, present. Commissioner Footer,
Present.
thank you. And then we'll go to our committee members. Committee member Schaaf
Present.
and committee member Batal.
Present.
And I do not see committee members Katia Papaye or Leah Pearson. All right. So I'll just go ahead and, since it's a rather small group, we can go ahead and call Kevin up. Were there any other topics that folks wanted to discuss tonight? Okay, I'm going to promote Kevin to panelist.
Sorry, I lost you there for a moment while I was
All
switching to
good.
panelist. So I'm not sure if you said anything to me just now.
No, but I'm used to the people disappearing for a moment, so I figured I should not say anything. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kevin. Really excited to let the community and some of our committee members hear about the project. I think a lot of us have also been to the open house, but wanted to, just get a little bit more detail from DDOT on a recording that we can share with the community, and then figure out which option the committee and eventually the committee will support, and then we'll obviously take it up at a full ANC level. So do you have a, like maybe a 10-minute version of the presentation you're able to give?
Yeah, I'll share my screen and yeah, as discussed, this will be sort of a shortened version of the presentation. And yeah, I'll try to watch the clock and keep it under 10 minutes.
I can give you a 5-minute warning if that works.
Yeah, no problem. So thanks for having me, and thanks to everybody who's already taken the time to learn more about the project. And I'm Kevin Harrison. I'm a transportation planner at DDOT. To start with tonight, the best place to learn about this project is the project website. And so I was just going to take a quick minute to get people oriented to the website to be able to kind of self-serve information about the project in the future. So this is, you can find it on the DDOT website, and I'll share a link in the chat in a moment. But there's lots of stuff on here. It starts with an overview, then there's a map of the project limits, the areas where we're working, which are Irving Street and Columbia Road, primarily between Mount Pleasant Street and Park Place and Warder Street, respectively, and then 14th Street through Columbia Heights. There is a YouTube video of the full version of this presentation you can watch anytime you'd like. It's about 30 minutes long. And then there is this concept map, which kind of gives you a schematic view of the different concepts that we're looking at. And so read the disclaimer. And then you have an interactive map where you can see the existing conditions, and then you can jump between the different scenarios and get a general sense of how they come together differently. And if you can pan around and see some of the different notes about drawing your attention to different aspects of the design. And we'll get more into it, but there's the three scenarios for the crosstown routes, Irving and Columbia. And then there is the proposal for some changes for the connection the bus makes between Columbia Road and Irving Street via Mount Pleasant Street. And then there are some proposed changes to 14th Street. And there's the call outs to kind of direct your attention to what those differences are. So that's a really helpful tool. And then an important thing is you can also post comments right in here. So if there's a specific thing that you want to call out, you can click on the map and insert your comment. I'm not going to post one now. There's the project timeline. There's events and announcements, noting this presentation right now. And then you can see the slides. You can see the boards that we had at the open house. And so I'll just open up this presentation real quick and touch on a few of the things in here just to get everybody on the same page. So the kind of three key goals for this project are to improve the speed for buses. Right now, they're extremely slow. You can see in this map on the right that where it's black, buses average under 4 miles per hour. Then where it's red, it's in that 4 to 7 miles per hour range. So through almost all of the corridor during at least some times of day, buses are very slow. Um, and then these the crosstown corridors cross two streets that are on our high injury network, 14th Street and Georgia Avenue, and those two are also um, two of the highest crash locations on those two streets. On an annual basis, there's about 3 times as many crashes as the other intersection. So as we work on this project, we'll be looking for opportunities to improve safety. Um, and then, oh, and you know what? This is kind of like the key problems that we're trying to address with this project, not exactly the goals per se, but and then also the sidewalks can feel narrow, crowded, and uncomfortable at different parts of the corridor. In the picture on the right, the sidewalk on Irving Street between 16th and Mount Pleasant, which has, high pedestrian volume being near the metro station, and it's about 5 feet wide with no buffer between the sidewalk and the curb. Um, but yeah, to that end, the project goal is reduce bus travel time, improve bus rider experience, obviously in terms of that travel time, but also importantly, the experience walking to the bus stops, waiting at their bus stop, and then identify other opportunities to advance the goals of Move DC, which is our long-range transportation plan, in particular safety, mobility, and enjoyable spaces. And so to achieve those goals, and I'm only going to give a brief overview right now, but we're proposing three different scenarios. One is curbside bus lanes, which is what you see on the left, pretty much throughout the entire corridor, and we refer to that as scenario one, which is just using this section one through all of Irving and Columbia in the project area. And then number two is what we refer to as offset bus lanes, which is where there's parking between the bus lane and the curb. And then in the left lane would be a travel lane. And then the third scenario is a combination of curbside bus lanes and what we refer to as this traffic calming section. So the third scenario is two different sections, 1 and 3, and that's what you see here. So to the west of 11th Street would be the curbside bus lanes, same as scenario one. But to the east of 11th Street uh, would be parking on both sides of the street. And so um, generally speaking, that scenario two with the offset bus lanes is the best for public transit because it provides benefit to bus riders all day, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Scenario one, where we would have the curbside bus lanes. The bus lanes would only operate from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays. So we know that there's still congestion outside of those hours in the evening and on the weekends. And so the curbside bus lanes with overnight parking would not not provide as great of a benefit, but it would be focused on the times of day when um, congestion is the worst. And then scenario three, where it's only providing benefit to buses at the times of day when buses are the slowest and in the locations where buses are the slowest. So it provides the least benefit, but there's some other advantages to it. Um, and then I'll just touch briefly on the changes proposed for 14th Street. Um, One would just be moving the bus lane from the curbside to that offset position so that there would be a parking lane between the sidewalk and the bus lane for 1 block between Columbia and Irving in the northbound direction. And that would allow space for kind of overflow with the shuttles to Washington Medical Center and other kind of short-term curbside uses. And we would also move the bus stop at Park on 14th Street southbound from Park Road to Monroe Street. I know you guys are in kind of the more eastern side of the project area, but just for awareness about what's proposed on 14th Street, and happy to answer any questions about the roundabout that we're proposing at Argonne and Harvard and the sidewalk widening on Irving Street if you all are already familiar, but I'm guessing you all will be interested in focusing more on the east side, so won't get into too much detail there. So that's a quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into more detail on any of this. But yeah, defer to you all.
Thank you, Kevin. Perfect timing. I think that was 9 minutes.
Oh,
And
last thing I'll note is that we are currently in a public comment period, ends December 5th. And there's a survey that you can fill out kind of at the bottom of the website to give feedback. And this is the best way to do that. But sorry, that's really it. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So folks that have questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll just go in the order of raised hands and go from there. Commissioner Footer, I see your hand.
Yes. Kevin, thank you so much for coming tonight. Quick clarifying question, and I'll probably have a bunch of questions throughout the presentation or conversation. But first is around the safety study, the numbers that you guys had given, and I'm specifically looking at slide 23, I believe. Yeah. So these visuals, is this are these crashes related to buses, or are these all crashes, which could be two cars alone?
This is all crashes. So yeah, this doesn't focus in any way on the kind of bus related crashes. It's the overall number of crashes that are represented here.
Okay. So, a lot of the options that you guys are providing are taking a lot of um, lane access away. And so, if these are crashes for all vehicular movement, not just for buses, what's the science behind reducing crashes with less lanes, but the same or maybe potentially even more in the future cars on the road?
Yeah, so going from 2 lanes to 1 lane provides a reduction in crashes pretty much across the board. There's what's called a crash modification factor. And generally, the reduction in travel lanes results in a reduction in crashes. So one of the things that we talk about a little bit in the presentation is, and something that kind of we heard from residents is about the weaving that is necessary as you drive down the corridor. So this photo on the right is the 500 block of Columbia Road, and you can see that there's a commercial vehicle set up blocking the right lane. And as a result, people are going to need to switch lanes into the left lane. And so that Lane changing results in a number of crashes. I think some share of those crashes are, just distracted driving, and there's risk when people are having to change lanes and things like that. Um, and then some of it is also, reckless driving where they're trying to pass somebody in an unsafe situation. And so by going from two lanes to one lane, you certainly address the ones where it's just distracted driving um the sort of carelessness that happens as people are humans. But and then the scenario three, the like traffic calming makes it so that it's actually physically impossible to do some of that passing and sort of reckless behavior that is possible with the two lane configuration. So the different going from two lanes to one lane, that's one of the main things that it helps with. And then also we'll be able to shorten crossing distances for pedestrians. And generally, when you shorten those crossings, it results in that also has a crash modification factor of reducing crashes. And then we'll be looking for other opportunities to introduce other traffic calming measures and other safety measures.
Mhm. Okay. And a lot of the behavior that you're talking about, for example, in the image that you have here is a commercial vehicle who's probably dropping something off, or maybe somebody's moving. How would you guys mitigate that kind of behavior? You're setting that as one of the causes of crashes. If there's only one lane, then where do they go? If there's the bus lane and one like transportation lane, then are they going to block buses and then it's just creating chaos? Like, how do we mitigate other behaviors that are already happening in the current state?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're proposing to do as part of this project is what we're referring to as these extended parking setbacks. So in the district, you're not allowed to park within 25 feet of a crosswalk. And what we are proposing to do is at many of the intersections, increase that setback by about 25 feet so that throughout the corridor, there will be a space there, depending on which side of the street has the full-time parking, that space set back about 25 feet for the short-term access. It's not a guarantee that whenever anybody needs to make a delivery to one of the houses on these different blocks that it'll be available, but it'll at least increase the probability. Um, and then, depending on the scenario, those people who may do violations will be either in the bus lane or the left travel lane. Um, and there is automated enforcement for that. So the hope is that people find use an alley or side street for loading and everything instead of in the street.
And
The extended parking setback is fantastic. One of the things that I've been hearing from a lot of people is that there's been a lot of disruption on, particularly in commercial corridors, where like food deliveries, things of that nature, there's no space for them to stop, and so they end up either going into bike lanes or they end up double parking, and it just is very disruptive. So that seems like a really good way to try and mitigate some of that. Josh, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
yes, I was just going to say on the note of the automated enforcement, do we have numbers on how compliance has changed over time? Because I remember early on that there were a lot of tickets given out by the buses, but I'm curious, as more tickets were given out by the buses, if people changed their behavior and recognized, oh, I can't be either parking or driving in the bus lane, because if I am and I'm caught, then I'll get a large fine.
Yeah, I don't have any numbers. I can tell you, what I see, which is that um it's reduced violations, but it hasn't eliminated them. And if we go from three cars illegally parked on a block to one, it's a 70% reduction, but the lane is still blocked. So it's a problem. And I think that automated enforcement can be good for places where you only had, a vehicle here and there blocking the bus, but in some of those places where violations were rampant. It hasn't, solved the problem. I do think that in this area, on Columbia and Irving, where it's more residential, we do see a lot fewer violations in our bus lanes that are through more residential areas that don't have retail, because retail is what kind of really generates that demand for just want to run in and grab something, type violations. But 16th Street through Columbia Heights, which is more residential, albeit high density residential. There are fewer violations than on 14th Street through Columbia Heights, which is more the kind of retail corridor.
Thanks. That's helpful. And another thing that I've been trying to puzzle through is just like another data point that I'm not sure if you have it or not, but I remember for the Georgia Avenue bus lane project, DDOT had data on the percentage of people that were moving through the corridor in private vehicles versus the bus, and I think the bus was roughly 51%. Does DDOT have any data on the modes of transit going along Irving and Columbia today?
Um, we do. I think that there's over 6,000 people a day that ride the C61, which is the main route that goes through this area, but there's also the C74. And then I think each street, we do have the numbers. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is in that, I believe it's in the like 4 to 7,000 a day. Columbia Road's higher volume than Irving, but they're comparable. I don't know what the exact percentages are.
Oh, those numbers match up with what I've seen for the buses. I guess I'm curious more along the percentages. Like, what do we have any sense of the percent of people going through the corridor that are on the bus versus a private vehicle? Just because
Yeah,
I think some of that can be easier to sell to the public for folks that might not be in the bus as much if they hear, oh, like 50% of the people on the road are actually in the bus.
yeah. No, we don't have it. I don't think it's as high as it is for Georgia.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's about 6,000
Yeah.
average daily riders on the C61, and then the average daily traffic on Irving and Columbia is in the 4 to 7,000 a day range.
Sorry, when you say average traffic, do you mean 4 to 7,000 vehicles?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
4 to 7,000
oh,
vehicles.
okay. Okay, so it's still probably close to like the 40 to 50% range of, I
Yeah,
guess it
but
depends on the number of people in the vehicle, but okay, yeah.
yeah, not all those C61 riders are on this section of the corridor.
Ah, fair. Okay. Thank you. I'll have other questions too, but want to give space for other folks to ask. Go ahead, committee member Josh.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin, for the presentation. Um, I mean, given that the sort of improving the bus experience and the timing and speed of the buses is the priority, I wanted to ask about proposal to have bus lane that is 24 hours in some period in some locations and limited time period in other locations. Mostly just to understand sort of how does that transition work? Do drivers actually follow that transition? Is that I mean, having being also a car owner and experience on the road, I mean, I might not notice if there's a small number change on a sign for a couple of blocks stretch of the road, and so I just want to understand sort of what's the logic behind that.
Yeah, so for this scenario one, it would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the whole corridor, 5 days a week. And so that's a slight change from the current curbside regulation where, on Columbia Road, it's daytime restricted for the most part, 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And so we actually would be changing it from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. just to make it more legible and easy to understand for people. Um, the one exception to that, kind of to your question, is on Irving Street from Mount Pleasant to 14th Street, it would be a 24-hour bus lane under all of these different scenarios. And this is an area where parking is not currently allowed anyways. So it's not really any change in the parking regulation. This is, for I'm sure you're familiar with these blocks where there's the kind of Lou's Sports Bar and that stretch by what used to be the Wawa and the Five Guys and stuff. So that would be a full-time bus lane through there. And then it would just switch to what is almost the same as the current parking regulation beyond that. Under the scenario two, it would be 24/7 throughout the whole corridor. So there wouldn't be any changes. So, as far as like as you move through the corridor, it would all be the same. The one scenario where there would be a change is just where the bus lane is fully not present. So where there's a bus lane, it should generally be the same regulation throughout the day as it's being proposed here. One thing I'll note is that what we're calling this hybrid scenario does sort of highlight the fact that it is possible to mix these different these different cross sections throughout the corridor. And that's something that we're open to based on the kinds of public feedback that we receive. And then, yeah, if we are doing something where in some areas it's 24/7, in some areas it's 7 to 7, then yeah, making that clear to drivers and users, that's definitely a challenge. That's not something that we really do anywhere else in the district. So will be something to be
Do they
mindful of
follow
for
it?
sure.
Is there a reason to believe that people will follow it, will comply?
Um, in terms of like understand that the regulation is changing or generally just comply with the bus lane.
I mean, certainly the first, but the second is also a good question too.
Yeah, so I'm optimistic. So there's a varying level of compliance in our bus lanes around the district. And one of the main indicators of compliance is the adjacent land use, as I was kind of saying before. So most of this bus lane would be in fairly residential, albeit, as I said before, sometimes high density residential. And that's where we have the best compliance with bus lanes. And so I'm optimistic that these bus lanes would do well. I think the most challenging area is going to be west of 14th Street on Irving, where there is high demand for parking. And so I think strategies to improve compliance there is definitely something we're going to be working on more in design. Welcome any feedback, ideas. If you've seen things other places that seem like a good idea, definitely open to that. But that's going to be a big challenge, I think. So it couldn't be much worse than it is now, but yeah, that's one of the challenges for sure.
And I saw Committee Member Vital raised her hand, and then Commissioner Brown raised her hand.
Hi, sorry, I'm appearing by phone. So I think it's interesting that we're highlighting the demand for parking on Irving specifically because Irving is like, there's a parking garage right there. So, and I understand that this is like a lot of retail parking and people want to run in and out, but like, I don't know, we live in a society and like people do need to park where there is parking. And I think we should maybe work on highlighting the fact that there is in fact a parking garage that people can utilize, which is obviously a rare thing, especially in a super dense and transit oriented area that is like the 14th Street kind of Columbia Heights intersection, we'll call it. And I guess kind of more of a general question or about the different proposals. 14th Street got a road diet or bus lane, we'll say, not too long ago. The bus lane that kind of runs from what I think it starts at Fairmont and then up into Park. And I would not call that project particularly successful. I'm a person who takes the bus on 14th, the bike lanes, very, very frequently. And it's really frustrating to see the cars parked there, the bus is still moving slowly, being blocked. And I guess I'm a little frustrated to see more half measures being proposed to fix this as opposed to doing what is going to be best for what DDOT is showing to be 51% of the users on the road, which would maybe be the center running bus lanes. But I guess the question before, to end this rant would be more, what is DDOT doing to make sure that this isn't just another half measure? And that this will actually solve the issues for the people in the neighborhood who rely on transportation and not car ownership to get to work, the hospital, since that's been brought up a lot. And so what is the promise that DDOT is making to the people of the neighborhood to ensure that this will actually improve our neighborhood and not just make the traffic patterns worse and more confusing again?
So one thing I was going to try to share, it's in one of our boards that was shared at the open house, was an evaluation of the 14th Street bus lanes. And I share your frustration that there's often, cars parked in the bus lanes on 14th Street. However, there are a lot of successful elements to that project. The number of crashes has been reduced by about 50%, so that's enormously beneficial. It's saved people injury and things that we're really trying to avoid with all of these projects. Like safety is generally the most important aspect of any one of these projects that we're doing. And the record on decreasing crashes with these bus lane projects is actually quite good. So, I think in every single case, we've reduced the number of crashes by, at least 25%. And so I think that's one of the good things that would be coming from this project. And then we've also improved bus speeds with our bus lane projects and all of our bus priority projects. And so for those 6,000 people that ride the bus through this corridor, this would be of tremendous benefit to them as soon as we build it. Um, and in terms of it being a half measure, I think that to look at the scenarios, we do propose the offset bus lanes, which I'm not sure if there is. You could probably come up with something, but it's not a half measure. It's there are trade-offs associated with it, but it is very solidly like uh supporting public transit, and it is the sort of most optimal arrangement for public transit. However, it does have trade-offs, and one of them is the reduced availability of parking on these corridors. And so, uh, we recognize those trade-offs, and we want to hear from the community and kind of understand their perspective, and also understand what might be the acute impacts associated with the reduced amount of parking. And I know that for many people, parking is just a convenience, but for others, it can have a very important need. And we want to make sure that we understand things like that before we would want to move ahead with um, a concept that's focused only on the most optimal thing for public transit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown, and then Commissioner Footer.
I thank you, Kevin, so much for your presentation today and for all of your hard work on the crosstown transportation plan. So I've been supporting the plan since 2014 when it was released and unveiled to the community, both in wards 1 and 5. And this ANC, particularly when we were ANC 1A, has repeatedly supported this plan, both supporting an overall concept of a priority bus lane and then other traffic calming measures. that come with this particular plan. So just speaking from a person who has been a part of this work from the beginning up until this point, has been a real pleasure to be a part of. So I have just one comment for you, because I know that a lot of this crosstown plan has been informed by prior studies, and there was one in particular that was done on Irving Street. The Priority Bus Lane project was definitely one of those plans that would reduce, it seemed two-pronged to me. One was to improve ridership and customer ridership experience, but two, to also reduce speed down Irving Street beyond Sherman Avenue. Because that's when the residential lanes, when you kind of move from 14th Street through Georgia Avenue and East in particular. I'm just going to focus on East in our SMD now that we're ANC 1E. Um, Speed has been a huge issue with us, as well as crashes that lead to injuries and deaths. And in particular, and I'm just going to say this on Irving Street, we have had a lot of crashes, particularly during COVID, at the intersection of Irving and Park. And I held a walkthrough with DDOT and members of the community because pedestrian safety was a challenge for us. The cyclists, their safety was an issue for us, as well as those that were riding in vehicles. So we put the additional lane on the south side, which is the right-hand side, to reduce that speed in the interim that we would look at how these plans would kind of roll out. And we did some other traffic calming measures there as well. For me, safety is paramount, and I want to ensure that when we're talking about the hybrid model, we have a real close understanding of what that could look like, particularly when ridership is low. And that is when I'm seeing that the 7 to 7 um, uh, kind of traveling, when we're looking at scenario one, we would have the parking from 7 to 7. So if we were not to have that and have scenario one throughout, um, focusing on our SMD, and my concern is that we would go back to that level of speed and have crashes because people will likely illegally travel on that bus lane and run right through the light at Irving and Park. Um, and I think that that would be the case when there's a lot of traffic during peak times, but I'm worried about the non-peak times. And the members of the community that came out and met you during the open house expressed those concerns. So I'm wondering if you can integrate that assessment data, that traffic, the crash data on the assessment slide, just to kind of demonstrate where we've been and where we are now. But my community members in my single member district have been expressing the hybrid model, and that would be scenario. What is that, scenario one for us? Recognizing that scenario two would be Mount Pleasant, 16th Street, 14th Street, and on until you hit our ANC. So, question and a comment.
Yeah, and I um I appreciate that. And I didn't mention the crosstown study, which is a big part of what we're building on, which was completed. I think it was published in 2016, but the work had gone on for a couple of years, so there was quite a lot of public engagement. It was finished up right before I joined DDOT, but yeah, we certainly are building on that. And to your point, to your what you were saying about Irving and Park Place, you do see this large volume of crashes at that intersection. And it caught my attention when I was looking through all the crash reports, and DDOT did do a project, I believe it was in 2023, um, converting that right lane from daytime restricted parking so that it was
Mm-hmm.
2 lanes on the approach to 1 lane with full-time parking on the right. They also replaced the traffic signals so that there
Mm-hmm.
were like two signal heads, one that like stuck out 6 feet
Mm-hmm.
into the road, and really like dramatically improved the
Mm-hmm.
visibility of the traffic signals, and I think, and then added what we call these like retro reflective backplates
Mm-hmm.
to make them more visible. And like having kind of informally looked at the crash data, it was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I think that and when I read the crash reports through the corridor, um, you see that a lot. Some share of the crashes are reckless driving. There was a fatal crash actually on Harvard Street um, between 11th and 13th. I can't remember what year it was, but in the last 5 years, and it was clearly attributable to reckless driving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, a lot of the crashes really are carelessness, and a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
most severe crashes are like T-bone type crashes where, both drivers
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, the light was green,"
Mm-hmm.
but one of them ran a red light, and
Mm-hmm.
it's, not seeing the light,
Mm-hmm.
potentially due to driving into a rising sun or you know, different circumstances. And so I think that all of these scenarios um, are effective at addressing those careless driving type situations
Mm-hmm.
by making the street 1 lane and getting rid of the weaving,
Mm-hmm.
and then also making the traffic signals more visible. Um, but the reckless driving, which is a problem, could still be a challenge at certain times of day.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, our record when we do these bus lanes has been very good in terms of reducing crashes.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say for the record that for my SMD community members, like the lane of parking, while it's enjoyable to have, is less about convenience and more about we've reduced crashes significantly. And lifting up that during the non-peak hours is just a concern for me. But we're all full proponents of the priority bus lane.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Footer?
Yeah, just a quick question. In trying to determine where the bus lane would be, either furthest away from parking or right along parking, is there any pro or con? Like, what ends up happening? Is it better to have it next to parking because there's less vehicular traffic and pedestrians getting to cars are less likely to be influenced, or what's the science there?
Yeah, so the general concept with the offset bus lane is that when cars do stop uh, to, do these quick pickup drop-offs and things, that it's not happening in the bus lane. And so it's been effective in other areas. There's some examples on like H Street Northwest downtown and I Street Northwest downtown where the parking is between the bus lane and the sidewalk, as opposed to having the bus lane, adjacent to the sidewalk. Um, and so I'm not sure if this is answering your question exactly, but that's the idea, is to reduce violations, um, so that the bus lane is more free,
I'm not
more
sure.
open.
Awesome. Yep,
Yeah.
that answers perfectly. Thank you.
And Committee Member Vital, did you have another question or is your hand just raised from earlier? good either way. But
Sorry, I think I never put my arm down, my hand down. Let me do that now.
all good.
Sorry.
I guess it's followed from some of the conversation, Kevin. Curious, if given Commissioner Brown's concerns, I guess are there other ways that DDOT could address some of those reckless driving concerns with scenario one east of Georgia, or do you think like those are probably going to happen no matter what?
Um, it's a good question. I think I'd want to take that back to our kind of our engineering team and some of the other planners and see what they think. I think um some of our bus lanes have been in for long enough now that we might be able to read a little bit more detail on some of the crash reports and see how frequent that type of behavior is, at least in terms of resulting in crashes. And then also some of the locations where we have put out traffic counters that will tell us speeds because we can, when we do that, we can see if somebody drove down the road at 50 or 60 miles an hour or something, far in excess of the speed limit, whatever that might be. So I'd um I'd want to take some time to kind of put together a response to that. I think it's a good question and yeah, something we can kind of work on.
Great. And I guess just a related question, and then Commissioner Brown, what I guess what would the impact be if, and I'm not saying that DDOT would do this, but what if, and I'm not saying that the ANC would do this, but what if the ANC said, we like scenario two for the most part, but we want scenario two west of Georgia Ave and scenario one east of Georgia Ave to, if there aren't ways to address the reckless driving concern with scenario one, or sorry, with scenario two. Is that something that would be feasible, or would the lane switching cause issues? I guess I'm just curious on your thoughts on that. And happy to rephrase if that didn't make sense. Sorry, are you hearing me?
Is
Hey,
this a question for me? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Sorry, the question was, what would the impact be to like the bus if hypothetically we said scenario one east of Georgia and scenario two west of Georgia?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking your other commissioners
No, I'm
if that
just thinking about
that
I'm
might
just
be
thinking about her
something that
concern.
could work in a resolution. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, you guys could certainly provide that feedback such that it would be yeah, kind of the offset bus lane um west of Georgia, but a curbside bus lane east of Georgia. Um, I think that um the impact on the bus, like just is something that we would need to kind of look into a little bit off the top of my head. Like I am a little bit concerned about the curbside bus lane um on this block between Warder and Georgia because there is that daycare on the north side of the street. Um, and so there will be a lot of potential, there's a risk of violations in that particular location. Um, and so I think that, the offset does have benefit, but that's for not the whole day. So at other times of day the bus lane would be effective and we may be able to come up with some sort of workaround for that. Create some pickup figure something out basically. But yeah, we that's something that we could look at certainly. But I mean that challenge is present with the curbside bus lane under whether no matter what happens. west of Georgia Avenue. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we're open to different ideas in terms of mixing and matching, but I think we'd have to look into the impacts of all of them. Um, and then yeah, so sorry, I'm kind of
Okay.
thinking out loud here, but hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if it specifically
Yeah.
answers your question. I mean, the reason why we have like the kind of hybrid scenario is because, buses are the slowest um west of 11th Street. Um and there are more buses west of 11th Street. That's where the D74 and the C61 operate. So buses are less frequent and faster on the other side. So we're more open to compromises in terms of the bus facilities farther east. But it would still have those trade-offs.
Got it. Thank you. And Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Please, as you're assessing that for Irving Street, there's also Woodbridge Daycare on the 600 block of Columbia Road, so right behind it, but a block over.
Yep.
Um, and you were talking about the alternatives of kind of traffic calming during those peak times. Um, I just a comment. You might want to coordinate with the Vision Zero team because they're really helpful in finding some innovative like calming measures when we were just dealing with some very unique challenges for Irving Street and all along Park Place in Michigan. Um, and if the folks that helped us are still there, I'm sure that they can provide some back history to nobody on the engineering team. They worked with the engineering team. So just a comment. Hopefully they can, think through some things because they helped us.
Yeah, and I know those folks and have read the report that they put together for that project. And I do think that one of the lead engineers has moved on, but to has left EDOT. But yeah, I know some of the other people who worked on it. So yeah, I'll touch base with them.
All right. What other questions or comments are out there? All right. Not seeing any. Yeah, so I think in follow-up, Kevin, it would be helpful if you could get some sense of what could be done in terms of traffic calming in the scenario 2 situation east of Georgia Avenue. And if there's nothing that we think can be done, that's helpful to know. But I think that would help me understand like what like I personally want to support. And then understanding what the impact would be generally switching between scenario 1 to scenario 2 or vice versa. So I think Commissioner Brown's concerns can be summed up in just the terms of concerns about reckless driving along Columbia and Irving east of Georgia. Is that right, Commissioner Brown? And so,
Yeah.
if there's nothing that can be done about that, that's helpful to know. If there is something that could be done, then maybe we would say, okay, we want to support scenario 2, assuming that DDOT does these traffic calming things. Or if nothing can be done, maybe we would say we want to support scenario 2 in this area and scenario 1 in this other area.
Yeah.
And I know it's not like a hard science, so there might not be good answers, but just like want us to have some of that information because I suspect that those are the same questions that other commissioners will be asking when we discuss at our full body meeting.
Yeah, and I think also it starts to get into under that proposal, it gets into some of the questions about um, changing the hours of the bus lane in different parts of the corridor that came up earlier, which is something that we try to avoid.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not possible. So
Yeah, no, I know we've done like flex posts in some parts along the bus lane. I don't know if that treatment actually makes sense here, but maybe having like flex posts as like an addition to the paint on the road to divide the lines would get people to not drive as recklessly. I don't know. I'm just like spitballing here.
yeah, I think in my observation, the flex posts are really good for keeping people from driving in the bus lane, but they're uh, not as effective at stop. Well, when people do park in the bus lane when the flex posts are there, it's a real problem. So
I see. That's
it
fair.
exacerbates the problem. So I do it's something that again I'm thinking out loud, but like this could be the right place to do something like that. I mean, although people would need to cross the bus lane to park in any one of these scenarios. So
Yeah, I'm just like
yeah.
brainstorming here. I'm not a
Yeah, yeah,
traffic
yeah.
engineer. I'm sure there are
No,
plenty of
no,
people at
no.
DDOT smarter than I am in this.
Uh, yeah, we'll look at some of these things and try to get back to you. Um, so yeah, good questions. Thanks.
No, appreciate you joining and answering all of our questions. Any other final questions for Kevin before he hops off? All right, well, Kevin, I appreciate you joining. You're welcome to stick around if you want, but obviously it's late and I'm sure you have other things that you want to do on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah, no, I will drop off. But thanks everybody for your time and attention on this project and really value your feedback and uh thanks and let me know if you have any other questions, anything that comes up. I'm happy to jump on a call or answer any questions via email, and I'll make sure to follow up on these few items that I think I need to do a little bit more work to fully respond to. But thanks and have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Appreciate you joining. I was just I figured maybe it's worth getting a gut check to see where people are at after that discussion, and figure out what sort of resolution we might want to flesh out for the full ANC or what sort of options we want to present. It seems like from the discussion so far, there, at least among this group, there isn't much interest in scenario 3. Is that a fair assessment? Speak up now if you like scenario 3. Okay, no one's speaking up.
I do not like scenario 3.
Great. And sorry, Allie, you wanted to say something? Or maybe your hand was just raised by accident. Nope, you're going off mute. What's up?
Sorry, no. I just meant to unmute. I was just gonna say, yeah, do not love scenario 3.
Okay.
Sorry.
And no, that's fine. That's fine. I guess where are folks leaning otherwise then? And if you say you don't like the bus priority project at all, then I'm gonna ask what you're doing here. But
That would be scenario 3.
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards scenario 2.
Yeah. And
I'm also
as
partial to 2. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm also partial to 2 center running bus lanes.
Yeah. And just as somebody who's been so engaged in this project and have gone through it with my constituents being so involved with this project and us being involved in it together, I'll have to go with 1. We love the bus lane approach, but dealing with experiencing the reckless driving and crashes and some of the deaths and injuries that took place, I just simply cannot support number 2. it would just revert back to their experience that they have without the parking, and they're perfectly prepared for that. Um, but we've got to calm it down. So yeah, we'll still have the bus lane, but we have got to calm it down. And I just can't, yeah, I can't deal with the crashes, so I'll have to go with one.
And I think that's fair. I think that's why I'm trying to thread the needle of, can we get some commitment from DDOT on some treatments?
Yeah,
And I
I
guess
would
what's your,
love to see what it would look like. Yeah.
um, I guess, would you be supportive of something that says, scenario two, assuming you can implement some treatments to address the reckless driving and make commitments on that, otherwise scenario one, or is that something that you wouldn't be comfortable with?
No, we were so involved with the design process and figuring out what could work. I don't like I would love for DDOT to tell us what would be best and looking at different examples of other corridors across the city. Um,
That's fair.
yeah. I mean, I think that there could be some language that we can like, look at and review. Um, yeah, it's been a long time coming with calming it down for so long. DDOT has really have to like they need to come up with something really explicit and working for me to do that.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
If I may, I mean, I think the first scenario is a relatively good balance of interests, and I mean, one thing to consider is the parking difference, and whether you like it or not, there's a constituency for that. And I mean, just looking at the number of parking spaces, the first scenario has 665, and the second has 324. And so, I mean, people do need places to park, and I think that's going to be an issue as the probably in public comments in any case. Yeah, so I mean, I don't have the sort of the history of the project and the full set of issues, but it does seem to be a reasonable balance in my perspective.
Thank you.
Perhaps, I mean, finding sort of specific areas, sort of geographic or
Mhm.
solutions for tweaks here and there would be the best approach. I mean, the you had Josh asked for, what if we proposed scenario one in one section and scenario two in another section? I mean, really, that's just um, choosing different approaches for different sections, which is fine, but we should just suggest what variations we think are necessary of the plans that have been presented.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments?
I have to agree with what Matt was saying with respect to like people are going to be quite upset about parking, and so scenario one does seem to be a good balance. But Matt, I kind of agree with part of the things that you were saying that um, cars that are not that are parked there at different hours are not able to actually like understand or paying attention to what those hours are. And then we have to wait for tow trucks, like things of all that nature. It just seems like a giant mess. And I do know that there are areas in the city where they are quite efficient at removing cars in those dedicated hours, but I guess in a time when the city is talking about very limited resources for all of that,
Mhm.
it feels like having a more permanent situation rather than having to rely on additional resources to come in and consistently, I guess, declutter these streets. I could be overthinking it though.
I do have to say one thing. This has only been like a 2-year experience. Like, so just think about the decades of time when there was no parking there during those times. So that experience, that is and residents knew that was a temporary experience until this bus lane would come. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, but most residents are used to moving their cars because that has been the experience for decades prior to the temporary solution that we've had. And that was during peak hours.
I think that's
So
probably
yeah.
true for the block east of Georgia. I think as things get closer to 14th or maybe even 11th, there's
Hmm.
probably more just like random people driving in to go to bars or like go to events or things like that,
Hmm.
which maybe does mean that like, scenario two in some portions is fine. But yeah.
What are loading zones? That's
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask about because it was weird that we
Hmm.
didn't call them loading zones, but they seemed like loading zones.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that 25-foot setback.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's just like the same experience and design, but just renaming it because it's not a commercial corridor. You know what I mean?
Does it need to be a
Like,
commercial corridor for there to be a loading zone?
yeah, because yeah, not a
Huh.
corridor, but just like having some like he was saying that having some like Aurora Market, for example, it is in a residential zone, it's commercial, they have a loading space. But for Amazon, for UPS, USPS, they don't have a loading
Yeah.
zone. So you'd have a dedicated spot for them. That would be a
Yeah.
plus.
this is different than some the sort of the ones that have the black parking signs that also have a pay system that you see for commercial purposes elsewhere in the district.
Hmm.
It's basically like a pickup drop off zone. You're only allowed to park
Right.
there for like 10 to 15
Yeah.
minutes. And
Yeah.
sometimes they restrict it to the type of vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest complaint that I've been hearing from people in major commercial corridors is that all these DDOT um, projects, bus lanes, bike lanes, all that has done a really poor job of taking into consideration um, loading zones. And so if
Hmm.
that's what they put in there,
Yeah.
seems like a pretty good
Hmm.
way of having some dedicated space.
Hmm.
So maybe a comment in support of loading zones in whatever thing we write.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is this a sufficient number of loading zones? I mean, is there a reason that 13, not 15 or 18 or something else?
Oh, did they
Yeah.
actually
Yeah,
give
I
a
mean,
number of loading zones in there?
Yeah, if you look at the scenario one says 300, sorry, 13 loading spaces. It says 13 loading. So I don't know if it's a zone or space, but
you with that table on 26.
Oh, yep, I see it. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. Eh,
But they don't talk about exactly where the
yeah.
blocks, right? I guess we could put that in our resolution.
Yeah.
Does anyone know if there's any talk about, I know this is mostly like bus priority and street calming, which are all, great and important things. But any talk about like the sidewalks uh, through like that 14th intersect, like right by DC USA? I heard about sidewalk widening, but was that on Irving, if I'm recalling correctly? Do you know if there's anything in this project encompassing any kind of like sidewalk redesign or anything on 14th? Because boy, is that an unpleasant sidewalk to walk on. I'm sure you all are aware. um, I mean, I truly do. I love having the vendors there. I love, getting cold fruit in the summer and pupusas and all that. But, it's constantly people with delivery, cars parking, people not looking, throwing doors open into the bike lane and, pedestrians, a lot of elderly people, a lot of young children. Is there any part of this project or in any way that could be improved or taken a look at as a part of this project, or is that kind of beyond the scope, do we think?
On 14th, it feels weird to comment on it because it's not our ANC at all. I know 1A
Yeah.
is working on a resolution.
Okay.
It's probably worth talking to them about it. Do you know Commissioner Easley? I think you know him.
I know the name.
Okay,
I don't know if we've ever met in person.
I can also find a commissioner for you to talk to there about that. But
Okay.
I don't know if he even has part of 14th. I don't remember who's on 14th exactly. But yeah, I can take a look and see if there is anyone good for you to talk to there.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other thoughts or comments? All right, well,
Thank you
thank
for
you,
doing this,
everyone.
Josh.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everyone joining. This has been a helpful discussion and insightful. So thanks everyone for joining on your Wednesday evening and chatting.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Have a good rest of your night. I
Thanks,
adjourn the meeting
everyone.
at 8:14.
Bye.